You're going to have to be able to ask and say the things that other people won't say.
Yeah.
And that's really the journey. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of reps.
This is Designing Leaders, the podcast where simplicity meets leadership. I'm your coach, Desi Mayner, your guide on this journey towards effective and efficient leadership. Here we unite theory and practice, bringing you actionable insights from the front lines of leadership. From boardrooms to sales floors, we're breaking down silos and fostering teamwork. Every episode is a new step towards absolute accountability and clear communication. I'm your host, Desi Mayner, and let's dig in. We ask for advice when we already know the answer, but wish we didn't. Ladies and gentlemen, I have my partner, Jeremy Kline, on with me today, and we're going to do something a little different. Not as much hardcore practical teaching and a little more of sharing some successes, some failures, and a little bit of our journey. Are you ready for this?
Talking origin stories?
Yeah, a little
All right.
bit. Let's see what they can't gain from some of the things that we've screwed up.
Let's go.
I got plenty of them, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
In Jeremy's defense, I threw him a curveball on this because I wanted it to be transparent. But let's kick right off, Jeremy. Talk about how did you get started in sales and leadership?
Well, I've always been fascinated with people. Growing up, for a good part of my youth, single mom, older brother, I think I had moved 10 to 12 times before I was really a teenager. Mm-hmm. So having to jump into new situations out of necessity really forced that I got to figure out where I fit in and where I stand out.
Yeah.
Also, I got to see a lot of different types of people. And so that, to me, was one of the starts of the journey, because people are fascinating, right? Mm-hmm. I think on our last cast, we took a primer into DISC, which is one of our foundations. Mm-hmm. And that's what really set me on that course was, man, I've moved a lot. What I don't want you to know about me is growing up, because of that, approval was a really big deal, right? If there was 1,000 people in the room and 999 didn't like me, I'm spending all of my time with the one.
Yeah.
And so breaking out of that, really getting to know me and why I'm fascinated with people, why this is something that I really wanted to go through. Because, as a kid, you just kind of stumble through things.
Yeah.
I was in sports for many years, played baseball, wrestled, played tennis, and learned a good number of fundamentals from leadership from great coaches. But at that point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, try my luck here, learn some trades, and ultimately it was business and sales that really cranked the engine.
You just perked your interest.
It really did.
All right.
Because it's challenging.
Yeah.
Right? I look at a lot of this when we organizationalize this, when we try to put something into motion and in structure, a lot of it was just, I'm good with people. Yeah. I like people.
Yeah.
And getting others to either buy something or do something fascinated me on the end of more of persuasion than manipulation.
Yeah. Breaking
the stigma, like we often talk about with sales as the sleazy used car salesman that only cares about money, only cares about himself. Yeah. And I really likened it and looked at it as how do I be a good guide? Mm-hmm. We're forced to make decisions. I don't want to spend this money here, but this is something I really want or maybe need.
Yeah.
And really trying to get out of the adversarial mode of I'm across the table and we're just battling through objections and rebuttals.
Yeah.
To how do I be on the same side and partner and guide to get you there? And so, man, I think we've covered the gamut. And even the last podcast we talked, it was door-to-door sales, retail sales, insurance and investment sales, car sales, construction, online sales. Pretty much all of the facets of getting into sales. And then from there, I really started to get an understanding of business.
Mm-hmm.
How does business work? How is it structured with different departments and different things? And how do you grow and how do you scale?
Yep.
And even prior to that, it was, okay, now that I'm a salesperson and have gained some success here, management, really working with others, how do I, and that's a different animal altogether.
New skill.
Yeah.
So let me break this down just for a minute, because there's a couple of pieces there I want to ask you about. So how do you think, or like what role did you moving so much play in like how good you became at like making friends and sparking conversation and then, I mean, eventually persuading and selling?
Yeah, good question. I think on one end, it forced me to be pliable.
Okay. Yeah.
It forced me to be adaptable. The dark side to that was I didn't feel anything was ever permanent.
Yeah.
So take it as you will, easy come, easy go. And so it forced me to really learn commitment.
Yeah.
To learn, grit and really stay power.
Because that wasn't natural.
No, because, I'm gonna make friends quickly. I'm gonna get involved in a sport and a school, and then a year or two later, I might never see you again.
Right.
So the good thing though was in business and projects and anything that we ever have done, even you and I together, Desi, is things aren't always as we predict, as they seem. And if we're going from point A to point Z, we know now that at D, E, or F, we're going to fall on our face.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Right? Yeah.
We're going to make some mistakes, and it's not permanent. It's not fatal.
Yeah.
We have to be pliable and say, and almost joke, man, that didn't work. Now what can we do to shift? And so I think that played a really big key. And it also helped me to say yes to a lot of things early.
Okay. Like what?
Well, just different jobs, different career paths, different business opportunities.
Just trying things.
Just going to try it.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It's not permanent.
Right.
It could fail. It could succeed. But what do we do? And so I think that played a huge role in that.
It's kind of a double-edged sword there.
It really is.
It's like you had the confidence, or you just didn't have the fear, really one or the other, to be like, I'm going to go try this thing because not much has been permanent in my life, and I've always figured it out.
Right.
Right. And it's like, that's a pretty good mindset, actually, to go into a sales meeting.
Yeah.
To be like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm confident enough to just, let's do it. You know what I mean? So that's pretty interesting there too. And obviously that played a role in your personality, right? Because how you were raised and how you moved around a lot, that kind of played into your ID personality as well. Walk us through, like, what was your first sale? Like your opportunity, and like, how bad was it, or how good was it maybe?
Well, there's a few. First few sales jobs were more retail. And I mean, those are just, you're clerking, you're an order taker.
Yeah.
If you're personable, people are coming in and shopping, and they just get to see what widget you're selling.
So what about like the first service that you sold?
See, that one was a little bit tougher. And I think even prior to in-home sales for like insurance or investments, I did some in-home construction sales.
Yeah.
And for those that are listening that know, I mean, we covered a handful of counties, completely commission-based, and it was good if you sold, and if you didn't, it was costly, right? And just getting started in that, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties, I think it was something like 0-16.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, this is like an old school Lions season, right? And it really got me questioning, man, do I just chalk it up and go work in a shop?
Right.
Do I find this is like, I mean, I can't close a window, let alone a sale through this. And, swallowing my pride, looking at mentors, doing stuff, something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I just, at that point, whether it was the yips or I just didn't have it.
For sure.
Right. And we often talk about that, Desi, with even a lot of our clients with leadership traits in general.
Yeah.
Is it born or is it learned? That sort of thing. And, innately everything we do hinges on communication and often hinges around people.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I know I can communicate and I like people, but what's missing? And come to find out, not unlike a lot of things, it's just tiny little shifts.
Yeah.
I actually recorded myself in my pitch, my presentation, walked through a couple of my mentors and said, hey.
Great practical tool there.
Like, I got to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
What sucks?
Yeah.
Because if all you see is your face right here, you can't see the trees through the forest.
Right.
Right. And so that helped me.
Okay.
It was, okay, you didn't ask this question here.
Right.
Here it was a little bit too product focused. You lost the crowd.
Yeah.
Read the room.
Yeah.
And so a couple little tweaks made that night and day different.
Yeah, too much pitching, not enough pitching. I didn't ask any questions. Correct. I spoke for 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Versus the prospect. Okay, so we go from that to where you are now, right? Which is sales, high level sales director for a large company, right? Doing lots of different things. Obviously, you're working with all of our clients with sales and with leadership.
Yeah.
Walk me through, like, how did you get from 0-16 to sales director of a big company and now a leadership and sales consultant?
Yeah, really, it came through reps and skill development. I mean, you can do the law of averages, safety and numbers, stuff that we hear all the time with sales. And that's going to help. But what really supercharges that is also really caring about your craft. If I'm going to take the time and I'm going to learn and absorb, and I'm going to iterate, I'm going to try new things, because a lot of times when you're dealing with people, when you're dealing with new things, it's uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
You're going to have to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to allow awkward in the room.
For sure.
You're going to have to be able to ask and say the things that other people won't say.
Yeah.
And that's really the journey. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of reps with clients, with potential clients, with groups.
I know for me, it was like, I used to do it in front of my dog.
Yeah.
Like practice public speaking, practice asking questions, tonality, all the different things. Like my dog was, he must have been incredible scholar by the time I was done with them. I know that for sure.
He would have bought.
Yeah, right. You said something key there. You said really caring about your craft. What is it that made you care so much about your craft?
Because I wasn't getting the results, but also I care about people. And so if I truly believed in something that I was selling, and we did uncover that there was a need or that the the prospect had this problem,
like a legit,
and I still couldn't get it across the 1 yard line. Oftentimes we make excuses. Many times people are going to blame the leads. Yeah. They're going to blame the prospect.
No doubt.
They're going to say it was an objection I couldn't overcome, or we didn't have rapport. But at the end of the day, and we teach with all of our clients absolute accountability. Yeah. I had to take that good, long, hard look in the mirror and just say, you suck. Yeah. Like, how can I get this across to where they'll want to purchase or they'll want to move forward with the service? Not so it can fill my coffers. Right. Because money, like for us, even in business, that is such a secondary, it's not even a motivation, it's a benefit just to show value. But really it was, there's a need here and I believe that this can solve that need. I got to learn how to do this.
So what was that like that drive came from somewhere? Like where did that drive come? Right. Cause a lot of people would be like, I'm out. This is too hard. Like, where did that drive come from? It's like, I'm going to figure this out. I just went 0-16. Many would just stop, right? And go, maybe it's not for me. Right.
Yeah. That's a great question. A part of it, I think, is others have done it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've always had the, why not me? If this guy can do it, if this gal can do it, it can be done. Yeah. And then part of it is the chip on my shoulder, I think, of just proving people wrong. Right. Okay. I mean, I grew up, up until my mom remarried, like pretty dirt poor. Yeah. living in Flint, having to survive, and that's where adaptation comes in.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to adapt until we can figure this out. But it was like, public school, tough upbringing. I should be a statistic. I've had people say, you're not going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Fill in the blank.
So that's challenge accepted.
Okay.
Let's show them wrong.
Yeah.
And like I said, part of it also is just, if others can, then why not me? And it's just, I had that tenacity and that grit. And I like puzzles.
Yeah.
So if I don't have something figured out, I really want to dig in and really see.
Yeah.
And objectively, and not point blame at you and point blame at others.
Right.
Like, what don't I understand yet? What questions am I not asking?
What makes you so fascinated with the puzzle? Because I'm very similar, so I'm curious to hear yours.
Well, I think, like with most things, there's patterns.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily just getting the right answer or solving the puzzle. It's understanding the pattern.
Yep. Yeah.
Like,
pattern recognition.
Can I recognize the pattern that's here? Tony Robbins talks about recognizing, adapting, and then creating patterns. Yeah. So when I look at numbers, with my personality, it's not super detail focused as an ID on the disc. However, I've forced myself to be able to look at, to gather, and pull data, but can quickly and easily see the story that these numbers tell.
Yeah.
When you and I are looking at a P&L sheet, when we're looking at sales numbers for companies, when we're looking at goal forecasts, quickly I want to see, what is that pattern?
Yeah.
And so that's what fascinates me ultimately with puzzles, is with them, you're going to find the algorithm, you're going to find the key. Right. And when you're able to unlock that, it's a pretty sweet thing.
Well, I know you've told me this before, when you see that storyline, with those numbers and those patterns, I think one of the things that you're really good at and that you teach our clients with is you use that to help people, which is at your core what you really care about.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I have this massive Google sheet with 19 tabs, and I mean, guys, it's crazy some of the stuff that this dude looks at, right? And you use all that to tell a story to help people as your end result. But you figured out how to do that, like just by understanding yourself, knowing your own motivations, knowing your core why of how to use numbers to tell a story to help people. Yeah. Which is, I mean, like, that's like A plus B equals L, Right. But when you enter the human element and your journey and your story to that, it makes it A plus B equals C. Right? But that's that piece, digging into that further. I know for me, when because I was a football guy, right? So, and I was a center. And that puzzle fascination for me started there. It started in sports and just understanding, like, why is it that certain teams win and certain teams lose? What's the pattern there? And like I said, I played on offense. So like you would see a blitz coming and they got to fill their gaps. And then you'd see the safety roll down and then the backer would walk up, or they would mask it to the last second. And to be able to solve that and then go, we picked it up. Right. And we scored a touchdown, like puzzle solved. Yeah. Right there. And then just like figuring like, what is it that it takes to solve those puzzles? Like the human aspect of recognizing the pattern, reading other people, communicating with other people, working as a team. Somebody's got to be the leader in that, all of those things to help me solve those puzzles. And then as a coach, a sports coach, literally, it's even more fun, honestly, than playing, because you get to create those puzzles for the other team and hope they can't solve them, essentially. And then you get to teach your team how to solve those problems. And I just became incredibly fascinated with that. And then that kind of carried over when we really started working with a bunch of different industries. I mean, like over 30 industries now. Throughout that journey, I've actually became incredibly fascinated with the puzzles within each industry. Yeah. And I view it the exact same way. Like when I walk in, right, the recent one was an auto body shop, right? And I'm like, okay, this team's over here in this department. This team's here. They're having this, kind of obstacle. They've got this opportunity. How are they talking to each other at the front desk? And then the whole thing, it's just like another blitz. It's another team that's the puzzle is a little bit mixed up, and you're like, how can we move this? How can we change that? Communication here, leadership there. Oh, look, a clear picture. We got it. We picked up the blitz. We scored a touchdown. So for me, like that, and it's something that was incredibly unexpected from me. Like, I didn't think that I would kind of fall in love with learning how different teams operate and how different industries operate. It's kind of like, I just like know so many different things about so many different industries. And it's just like, oh yeah, that's the Dulaheimer and the whatchamacallit, and in the body shop, you got to do it. And you're like, how do you know that? And I'm like, we worked with a company 3 years ago that did this or whatever. And I just happen to remember it. But I mean, it's all pattern recognition, and people say all the time, talking when I relate sports to business, to me, that's the puzzle and how that works.
Yeah.
But talk to us, because eventually in sales, which we often talk about, you get really good at sales, which you got really good at sales. And then usually what happens then is you become a sales leader, right? Because that's just the natural progression in business. Not that it's right or wrong, but that's what happened. So like, what was your first kind of transition from selling to leading a sales team? And then, I mean, that's a whole different skill. So talk to us a little bit about that transition there.
Yeah, that's it was a tough transition initially, because I had to face the facts that over 70% of people that are experts in their field that then go to manage fail.
Oh, yeah.
And often it's due because your goals are different. Like becoming a sales leader, becoming a manager, director, business leader, you're no longer responsible for your results. You're responsible for the people who are now responsible for the results. The easy part of that was, again, I love people. And I looked at it as, well, instead of me giving 100% to my short-term goals or even long-term goals in sales, what if I gave 10% of me to this person and 10% to this person, and really put a focus on, it's a longer sales cycle. Yeah. Because the reward is seeing them grow and, as the water rises, all ships rise type of deal. But it was a unique skill that you also had to pick up, right? Yeah. I mean, I've, previous lives done ministry and have really worked on leadership in other aspects. But in this trade, now how do I get people, how do I find the right ingredients and get the right recipe to now scale this to 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 reps? Yeah. And see if it works. And it's been great, man. I love that. That's been much more fulfilling to me than breaking a sales record. Yeah. And that's really what appealed years ago when you and I jumped, on board here with Mayner Leadership is just that, like the focus on people. There's a lot of companies out there that put a heavy focus strictly on their curriculum. We've talked about that with other people in the industry that, man, in some ways they got a lot of great stuff, but finding the puzzle uniquely with the customer or with the prospect that we're working with, and then seeing the reward of them rise, that's what really made that much more impactful than, man, you sold the most this year or whatever it is.
So why is that so important to you?
Which part?
Like seeing, having the impact to see another group of people do well and be successful.
Part of it is selfish, that I played a role in that success.
For sure. And that's normal.
But also I realize they're doing the work. Yeah. Whether I'm holding them accountable, measuring, monitoring, teaching, equipping, training, they're doing and putting in the effort. And if they do, seeing that success and me seeing a very small part of that. Yeah. The main part of it, honestly, is I believe every single person made in the image of God has greatness inside of them. Yeah. And oftentimes we walk around like zombies, have no clue of that hidden, potential that's in there. Yeah. Right. And so even if it's a small part that I do, I feel really my focus is drawing that hidden potential out of somebody, showing them that it's there, and then seeing what they do with it.
Yeah. That word potential it really hits for me too. It played a big role in kind of my journey, especially as like a young athlete and a young student athlete going into college and then, into the teaching piece. Oftentimes like it wasn't about how good you did, especially like with my dad. It was about, have you reached your full potential? And is that as good as you can do? Right. Which is always brutal as like a teenager. I mean, even you go like shovel the snow on the driveway and then it was like, is that as good as you can do? Like, probably not. I'll be back.
Yeah.
And you probably didn't even look at it. Right. Until I was like the fifth time. I'm like, yeah, that's as good as I can do. Right. And it's like, now you've reached your potential. Yeah. And that was always the thing. And just kind of reeling back, I think that they must have used those words a lot. Like the word potential, that must have been used a lot when I was a kid in those formative years, because it really rings a bell with me. Because it's like, if I get a feeling that I haven't, or I'm not trying to, then it's like, that's my chip. Like all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, I'm like short here. Like I have a feeling of I'm falling short, or I'm not putting the effort in, and I'm like immediate chip on my shoulder. Right. So, I think it just must've been from them using that word and harping on, you need to be pushing to reach your potential. Yeah. Right. Because you were built for something big. Right. You were built for something important. And, the words "don't be lazy" were used a whole bunch too.
In addition to potential.
I mean, my dad was, a hardcore blue collar guy that worked in the shop. And so that became, that work ethic that carried over, into sports, into business, into, how I, am a father and a husband and all those things. That's another piece too. Along this journey, you have 4 kids.
I do.
And you talk about leadership, right? So how many boys and girls do you have?
2 and 2. 2
and 2. Yeah. So, and I've got just 2 daughters.
Yeah.
You talk about the ultimate form of leadership.
Yeah.
And what are the age ranges?
18 down to 10.
18 to 10, a little bit of a spread there. So talk to us, like, within that realm, what are some things that you've learned about leadership?
Yeah.
That, School of Hard Knocks for sure. And every parent would definitely say that. But what are some things you've learned in that realm that you've been able to transition to kind of help you with your teams and your life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we hear terms like leadership and legacy, and none of that is more true when you're looking at building and raising a family, right?
No doubt.
It's one of those things, man, where you strive to do your best. I think in raising kids, they raised me just as much.
I know, right? They're teaching me.
I mean, I'm in the hospital for the first time with my daughter, Sylvia. She's 18 now. And I'm thinking, they don't know me. They're letting me leave with this baby?
Like, is this legal?
Like, are they going to give me a manual?
Right.
Like, how? You can't trust me with this thing.
Or they showed me how to swaddle like once.
Yeah.
I was like, here you go. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But, there's a gazillion cliches and phrases that you hear. The one that sticks out really most to me is things are caught, not taught.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they're going to see and model and emulate what you do.
Yeah.
And not what you say. And that's for the better and for the worse. And I've lived on both of those ends. Yeah. But really seeing them, helping shape and mold them, but not to live vicariously through them.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Right, that's a tough. I mean, you see that today. I mean, as a sports coach and a sports guy, like that was one of the biggest. Still to this day. I mean, you used to call it like puff chest syndrome. Yeah. Like fake confidence because their dad or their mom's trying to live vicariously through them, or they're putting them through all kinds of crap. And you ask the kid a couple of questions and they don't even want to be doing it.
Like, I don't even like this.
It's like, we're going to win a championship. And it's like, why? Because your dad didn't in high school, and that's a big thing, is to be able to be objective.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it with effort. I don't care if you win. I don't care if you lose. But if you don't really give it your all, and this is with sports with my kids, they're not super competitive like I was.
Yeah.
So that was hard. I'm like, we are here to win.
Winning's fun. That's what I used to tell my mom.
And they're like starting out like, I wonder what coach brought for snacks.
Oh yeah, that's how it started with my kids in T-ball.
Wait a minute. But then it was, hey, listen, if you're going to do this,
Yeah.
you need to give it your all. I need to see your hustle. And it got to where it evolved to where that's what I would praise them or critique them on. Not that they scored a goal, but man, they went after it.
Yeah.
They hustled.
Yep.
And then a lot of it, man, is trust. Like, I have to trust that the things that I'm teaching them, the things that God's teaching them, they're gonna do all right.
Yeah.
I want them to be raised with standards and beliefs, but I need them to search that out and not just latch on to dad's beliefs.
Right. I mean, there's so much good there. I mean, just to unpack that, right? To me, like what I heard you say is you essentially taught them how to love the game, right? And like fill in the blank on what the game is, right? Sports, but that quickly transitions into life, into leadership, into becoming a mom, into becoming a dad. Yeah. And like, to me, like those are the things that I'm more interested in teaching them. And I'm just using sports as a vehicle to do so. But like, I mean, same thing. We go back to like, I love people and I want to help them win. I mean, that's just passion. Like that's what that is. And like, that's where that started to get built. And I think that's why sports plays such a huge role.
It really does.
In those things. I mean, our best clients, like they're athletes. Or they were athletes and they still have that mindset of they have a love for the game, right? Just like, I mean, I had a love for the game, basketball, football, baseball, powerlifting, strength and conditioning. And then all of that kind of transitioned into, I just really like staying in shape now. And now my new game is entrepreneurship and leadership. And my new game is solving the puzzle for other teams, right? And other businesses. So I think that piece there, just really good passion and learning how to love the game, whatever your game is. Like you loved something and you were super passionate about something at some point, like everyone was. And I think sometimes in order to have the second thing, what you were talking about, which is basically keep pushing, perseverance, you have to tap back into that. Yeah. And sometimes like, cause I mean, if it's the fourth quarter and you're down by 7 points, like you're not having a super fun time. No. And like, how many times in life are we in the fourth quarter and down 7 points? Like a lot, right? Like you get, by the time you get to E, we're going to fall on our face. And I think that's where that perseverance comes in of like, nope, the season is 6 weeks. So we're not done after 2 games. Like you started something, we're finishing it, and teaching those things. And then the other thing you said, which I think is super powerful about leadership is trust. Yeah. The way that we kind of raise them, the way that we teach them, the way that they see us operate. I mean, even to the point of like my dad very rarely said sorry because he didn't think the word meant anything without changing your behavior, your actions with it. So it's like, I'm so sorry. It's like, that means nothing to me. Show me that you're sorry. And I'm like, how do I do that? I'm 7, right? Like, but he was instilling those, but all those things started to build trust, and you had to earn that trust. And I mean, the same thing with any team, you have to earn the trust. And so that's like easily transitionable. Talk about your best sports teams. If they don't trust each other, they're going to lose, right? The blitz is going to happen. The linebacker is going to kill the quarterback and they're going to have to go under the knife and get surgery on their shoulder, right? Not that happened to me ever. Okay. Once in U of M Stadium in front of 110,000 people on national television, but we'll keep that quiet just between us. Okay.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah. Well, that's a good learn though. But I mean, the combination of those two things, like that's what builds the beast in us, builds the drive, the why, the passion, the person. I mean, all of that. I mean, what Angela Duckworth, I think, calls that grit. Passion and perseverance combined equals grit, which is just so incredibly good. Tell us about like within your sales career, within your leadership career, like what would you say is your biggest success and like why?
Well, I would say one of them is seeing the fruit of the labor that, depending on what industry we're working in, a client, a job, seeing something broken that we were able to show them perspective.
Yeah.
Put in the work, give them a structure, and see something completely turn around.
Yeah.
With sales, I've had sales reps that had started off and they've made no more than 30 or 40 grand a year, making, well into six figures. Again, they put in the work, but they understood, hey, here's the framework. Here's some structure, right? You walk them through time management, metrics, sales methodology. It's not unlike even what we do with clients when we are able to step back and get a better perspective, right? You care about your client.
Yeah.
And you're able to see the trees through the forest. Like, I don't care that this is the curriculum. What's your problem? What's your why? And with sales, I think the biggest thing that I've learned personally is it has way more to do with listening than it does with talking. Yeah. Like, if your prospect feels heard and understood,
right,
that's different than 90% of salespeople out there trying to pitch and peddle just a product. So that was a pretty big achievement.
Seeing someone go from 30 to 100,
awesome.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. It's like scoreboard, we win, no doubt. Talk to me about let's go on the other way. What would you say is one of your biggest failures?
Well, the 0-16 hurt pretty bad.
That was bad. That's bad, right?
That was one of the big ones. I've had a number of those to where, whether it was somebody didn't buy or a plan or a project that we worked on just completely failed. Again, I look at that often as an opportunity to grow. Not at the beginning. When that first happens, it's like, I want to jump off a cliff.
No doubt, right?
I thought this was the way to go, and I'm dumb. I can't figure this out.
Yeah.
And more than anything, it's a true lesson in self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like, man, you know what? I'm really not good here.
Yeah.
I really need to drive and focus. And time management, which is so ironic, is something that you and I teach now, was one of my biggest issues.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had an award for procrastination, gold medal.
You'd win the Olympics, right?
Putting things off, not really focusing. And also, with my personality, it's more gluttonous in the sense that I can take on more.
Yeah.
It's harder for me to say no. So that taught me, if it's not, somebody said, if it's not hell yes, then it's a no.
Yeah.
To really look at what's important and does this fall within Mayner Leadership's vision and standards?
Yeah.
It could be an awesome opportunity, but it doesn't, so that's a no. Well, I mean, I failed at that for many years.
Sure. Yeah.
Because earlier, remember we talked about I would say yes to a lot because nothing's permanent and I need to be pliable. So it wasn't just yes to a lot, it was yes to everything.
Yeah.
Well, what happens there, the domino effect, is somebody's going to be let down.
No doubt.
Right? Some balls are going to be dropped because you can't juggle all of those things.
Yeah.
And so it really made you narrowly focus on standards, vision, your daily habits, the why am I just getting up in the morning? And that, all of that came through just falling on your face, just failing. Getting back up.
Hard knocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just wanting to win at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And however we felt winning was. I know one of my biggest successes is, so I take my kids to school every morning, right? And my little one, 4 years old, says, "Daddy, do good at leadership today."
That's awesome.
And that is just like she says it almost every morning, and it just like melts my heart.
Yeah.
And here's why. The backstory of it is that's completely different than the relationship that I had with my dad. Now, the relationship I had with my dad was amazing, right? And it was incredibly strong, and like he was my person until he passed.
Just a different dynamic.
I learned work ethic, right? And perseverance and a different type of passion from him by, watching him wake up at 4 a.m. for 37 years and go to the shop and to a place that he didn't necessarily love, right? And doing a thing that, he didn't necessarily wasn't born for.
Right.
And that's totally different. So for me to have created something that I have a little bit of that freedom that like I can wake up with them and I can take them to school, and like my 4-year-old is defining work as leadership.
Yeah. Do leadership good.
Or Dad, do you have a meeting? Or did you, like, I'll come out of the office and they'll say, did you make money? So like they know now, like I make money on a Zoom call when I sell something and help someone.
Right.
Right. To like the difference there is like, man, I've changed my family tree and how work is perceived within my family. Like that's crazy. And a lot of my family doesn't even fully understand what I do, right? Oh, you're a consultant, or you help, small service-based businesses or whatever, right? They just know like I do leadership. So that's definitely probably my biggest success. My biggest failure is, I'm going to say, not realizing it sooner, right? Like it took my dad passing before like I woke up to become my own man and figure out what is it that I was born for.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I was a teacher and I was doing good and I liked it. Right. And getting good results, all the good things. Right. I mean, decent salary, health insurance, like all the things. And then Dad passed. And then I went into self-discovery to figure out who I was really born to be. Right. And help people with leadership. And I think my biggest failure is like, why did it take that long? And I think the reason behind it is like, there couldn't be two Roger Deans. So, and I think I had a fear there that like he wouldn't approve if I had done that. So I didn't even those neurons just shut off. Like, nope, this is your thing, because this is what you planned on, and this is the plan.
The path was set.
The path was set. Like from when I was in high school, I was gonna be a teacher, I was gonna be a sports coach, and now when I look back, kind of like the things I learned from that failure, like just God dropping seeds of like when I didn't get the varsity football coaching job. And like that was a seed to be like, you're heading down the wrong path. Did I see it then? No, not at all. I was just pissed and that I didn't get it. Yeah. Right. But like that. And then, and then obviously Dad passing was the biggest seed to be like, wait a second, why do I feel like this? And why now? Why do I feel like this now? It seems like this has been in there all along. I know it has, because I've been like this uber competitor my whole life, but all of a sudden I wasn't really competing. Not like I was coaching football and stuff like that, but like I wasn't competing. Yeah. So it was like, what's my new game? And that's where I had to find it. But I'm like disappointed in myself that I didn't learn that or find that out sooner, or that like I wasn't able to articulate what was going on and that something was missing. And that's like really interesting to me. Like I think about that a lot. Like, was it because I was scared that my dad wouldn't, like, would he look down now and be like, what are you doing, kid? Right. And I'm like, well, let me show you my bank account. You might approve then. Right. Right. You're right. Right. And they're like, well, don't look at that year. That was super bad. Right?
Look at this one.
We made it through though. So yeah. But I mean, to me, that's an interesting one to me.
It's funny how major events will kind of shake that loose. Yeah. Can jar you.
No doubt. Yeah. I don't know what it does, but it's like trauma, essentially. Yeah. Tragedy, trauma. It just jars you. And I think just the way that I competed and the way that, the chip on my shoulder and the drive that I had, like, I think those things like kick in, but in a totally different way. They kick back inward, and they're like, what are you doing? And then all of a sudden, like all these questions come up in your head and you're like, well, shit, I don't really know. What is my shit? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who am I doing it for? What am I trying to win at? Oh, wait, I'm not even playing a game. And it's like, oh. So to me, like, that's what happened. It was like everything that had always been like this outward, all of a sudden turned inward. And then it was like, whoa, I got to figure this out. Cause I'm like, I got these new like feelings and these new questions and these new passions. And if you had told me before my dad died that I was going to be super fascinated with learning different businesses and industries, I would have been like, no, I'm not. I'd be like, you're wrong. Yeah. Right. And now it's like, oh, that's like one of my biggest joys of our business right now, which is so much fun.
Well, it's funny because you've spoke on this a number of times, that a lot of what you were doing as a teacher and as a coach, leaving that, none of that was in vain, because all of the things that you've learned and that you've gleaned from that. There's so many parallels and similarities.
No doubt.
But it was like, you had mentioned, like I'm playing a game here, but I feel like I am playing football, but I'm in a basketball arena.
Yeah. That's exactly how I would explain it.
Switched to like, okay, I'm all the tools. I'm an athlete. I'm a leader. Now I'm here.
Yeah.
And it was like something clicked.
Yeah. Like people ask us all the time, like, tell us about your experience, like with leadership and like, how do you know how to solve this puzzle and everything? And I'm like, I've been leading, motivating, and encouraging people who didn't want to be there or didn't want to do the thing for 15 years.
Right. They had to.
And I figured that out and got them to win. I'm like, you guys, if you like what you're doing remotely, this should be easy.
Right.
And then running sports, like I coached like 6 different sports and played at the highest, Pee-wee to 7.5 minutes of fame, and, talking about football, but all of those in between are like, I say it all the time, like, we don't need to know your industry. We know people, we know teams, and I'll figure out the puzzle. Like, I'm really good at figuring out the puzzle because of all the experience that we have had in business, in sports. And then obviously I'm a history buff too. I was a history major. So I bring in those military pieces. I'm always been fascinated with wars and history and like how they organize things and like, how do you win a game like that? And so I studied that my whole life too. So it's like all those things combined. It's like, I've basically been doing this my whole life,
right?
In some way, shape or form. So that's pretty fun, but let's wrap this up. Let's talk about one piece here that I love to end with, and that is, what advice would you give little young Jeremy if you were to run this race again?
Don't take things so personally.
Okay. Why do you choose that one?
Because when I'm able to be objective and look at, and that's the beauty, I think, of what we do working with businesses. You mentioned we don't need to know the industries. All they can see is their short-term problems and where they're at. What we do is we kind of remove that and we can look at it from different angles. Right. And dissect and iterate and look at different aspects. If I'm so bound to something, if I take it so personal, it's harder to see the trees through the forest. Yeah. And it's, Adam Grant talks about the compass versus the roadmap, right? If I'm taking it personal, I need to see the roadmap and I need a straight line to success. I need to do this. And if I fail, it's I suck, not that was a failed plan, a failed attempt. Yeah. And, that came through a lot of bumps and bruises that now, like, failure is inevitable. It's part of the process. It's really the only way you learn. Yeah. So it still sucks, but I'm able to be objective about it and say, Desi, you know what? In June, we're probably going to fail. What do we do then? Yeah. And you plan for it.
Yeah, it's that didn't work or that might not work instead of we suck.
Correct. Yeah, and also it's perspective. I would say to young little wee lad Jeremy, understand zooming in and zooming out.
Oh yeah, good one. Yeah.
Like microscope, telescope. Yep. Like I need to look at things that are around me and be very clear, but those things are so short term and they take oftentimes so much more importance and urgency in our brain. Yeah. Like I care more about my headache than I do what's going on in the world because it's what's facing me. Yeah. But then also zooming out and say, what would it look like? Yeah. What does this year, this 5 years, what is now with my kids, what does college look like?
Crazy.
Right. And for my person, if in knowing my personality, I would also say what my wife also says often is be here now. Yeah. Oh yeah. I live much more future focused. What's next? What's next? What's next? Yeah. Did we hit this milestone? What's the next objective? Instead of like here and now. Like you want to take pride in the successes. Yeah. Take your licks in the failures. But like you got to be here. And I think that there's years, Desi, that went by that I wasn't. Yeah. Because I was so on to the next thing or so focused that I would just say, man, maximize that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
You know, I think for me, the advice I would give, little baby face Desi with hair. I had a receding hairline at like 12. So but it would be to smell the roses more, to, you know, be content, but not satisfied, like to appreciate how far you have come. Right. And not to say like, just, you know, be content with things and don't try hard, like, but like take more than, you know, 3 to 7 seconds to realize how far you have come and what you have won at and the things that you are good at. And like, I've always been the one that's like, if I would have won the Super Bowl, I would have been puking in a trash can the next day from working out, to be like, yeah, well, that was yesterday. Today we gotta win another one. And, you know, and I think business is the same way with successes and with failures. And then I think the other one kind of goes right along parallel with that is learning to enjoy the process. And this was always a thing with me, even like in sports, like I wanted the result.
You wanted the trophy, the goal.
Yeah. I wanted to either win as a team and I wanted to win as an individual. I wanted to be all state, you know, all league, all whatever. I wanted to set the record. I wanted to score the most points. I wanted the most personal, individual, and team accolades as possible, period. Because, I mean, oddly enough, I just enjoy being better than other people at things. I mean, that's just me being transparent, right? That chip has been built a long time ago because if it's in my potential to do so, then I need to find that. Otherwise, I'm going to not be happy, right? But I think enjoying the process, I've never been good at that, right? Until I think recently with the hard knocks of growing a small service-based business.
Yeah.
If you don't, like, you're going to hate every second of it. So, and I think, so that's something that, you know, the advice that I would give is learning to enjoy that more in my younger years, because it would build you up and prepare you more for it. Like, you're going to fail every day.
Yep.
And it's like, you're not failing, you're just learning. I mean, it's literally like Thomas Edison. You're trying to find the algorithm and hit it big and make your first million or 10 million or whatever it is. And it's like, if you don't enjoy making your first 6 figures and figuring that out, and then you don't enjoy just the grind and the, you know, there's no silver bullet. There's a bajillion golden BBs. And if you don't enjoy searching the hay for the next golden BB, you know, and just grinding it out, then like you're probably not going to like the result either. And we don't know if we're ever going to get it.
Right.
You know? And
that's
so,
really good.
So to me, that's one of the biggest advice I would give babyface Desi.
Yeah, that's funny.
With the receding hairline.
And I've seen you do very well, even with clients, walking them through that process.
Yeah.
Right. They're stuck. They're in a rut. For you to open up that time horizon in perspective, because you can say, "Hey, smell the roses," and, you know, understand and feel good about the process. Well, man, the process sucks right now.
Right.
Like, we're in the gutter, and we were supposed to be projected for 20% growth, and we're down 10%.
Yeah.
It's a 30% delta, Desi. Like, this, enjoy the process, but you're able to say, okay, in the last 365, what did you accomplish? What did you learn, or what did you do that,
or,
you know, a year ago?
Or who are you now that you weren't then?
Correct. What did you learn? What have you become? Then it's like, oh, okay. And you know what? You're right. This does suck. But why did you get in this in the first place? Did you expect it to just be super easy?
If it was easy, everyone would do it.
Right. Like, you know what? Been married to my wife many, many years.
I was saying, you better get that number right.
And that is, you know, the hardest thing that I've ever encountered.
No doubt.
You know, and I'm not the best roommate, so I get it.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not supposed to be.
It's the hard that makes it great.
Because then I can look ahead and then say, okay, this is what we accomplished.
Yeah.
Like, remember the first year when you threw a hairbrush at me because I wouldn't pick up my towel or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
You put the toilet paper on the wrong way.
Fill in the blanks. To be able to see, like, okay, this is why I got into this. This is the purpose behind it. And it's going to suck. You know what? Embrace it.
Yeah.
Enjoy it, because you're going to hit the goal. And if that's the only thing you care about, you're going to be lifeless after that. Like, what now? I've reached this.
Absolutely.
So that's really good, man.
It's a journey. It's a journey, and you're going to have lots of ups, lots of downs, and it takes passion. It takes perseverance in business, leadership, sales, life, family. It doesn't matter. All of those, it's going to take passion and perseverance to win that game and to run that race and run that journey. So I hope a couple of our successes and failures and lessons we've learned along the way helped. And hey, Jeremy, thanks for jumping on with me and sharing your journey today.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. And babe, it's 23 years.
Oh, he got it right.
Get that record straight. So
Desi
thanks a
and
lot,
Jeremy out.